Hello and welcome to my show, The Awakening, here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. The information and opinions expressed on this show are just that, the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual personal experiences. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. My name is Tina Huggins. I'm your divorce coach specialist, divorce consultant, and restorative family mediator. My guest today is a returning guest. She's one of my favorite guests. You know, I have a lot of them. And Chrystal Meach is here, and she has been with me through this whole course of my going through this death of my husband. And Crystal's been going through some stuff in the same time frame that I am. Hers is a little bit more related to her divorce aspect. Even though her divorce was just a bit ago, it still has some aspect to that. And our topic today is life is upside down, now what? And so Chrystal is here. And like I said, Crystal's life has been a little bit upside down, as for some of you that know that my husband died earlier this year. So obviously my life's been turned upside down a little bit as well. And so I want to welcome you, Chrystal. So thanks for coming and joining me again. And so I would like for you to kind of just talk a little bit about how upside down your life is right now.
Well, thank you very much for having me back on the show. I'm so sad about Joe, and I'm just so grateful that I've been on this journey with you, and you on my journey. My life has been, well, it's been culminating because I'm a single mother and an entrepreneur. And throughout this whole process, it's been really, I guess the big awakening for me is, is it my life or is it everyone else's life? And there's always opinions about how people should live their life, but it's me listening to my guidance within me throughout this process. And that's been all the way back through childhood, where I kind of learned not to trust my intuition. So the big test right now is learning to listen to my inner guidance. And there's various ways I'm being tested. One of them is just my resources, my time and my energy. And what's the priority in my life? And then who do I want to be in this life? And that's a big question right now, because who I want to be really decides my security and my stability going forward.
Yes. And so I'm going to take it back a step or two here, where you're talking about trusting, yourself, and what you were taught not to trust yourself when you were young. And now, so you're having to go through this learning part. I'm going to connect this to our spiritual guidance and stuff here. But I talked with a client earlier this week that was having issues very similar to what you just kind of described, where everyone is telling him what he should do. You should take the kids from her. You should do this, and you should take that, and reality is that these people out here, they love him. They love him just like your people love you. And that is what they learned in their life during that time frame. And they think that they're right. And in their world, they are right, but they're not living in your world or in his world. So we just have to kind of embrace the fact that, yes, they love us, but right now I need to set a little bit of boundaries and not have these conversations with that person. And that's kind of the way I talked with him. So I know that you and I kind of briefly touched on that this last week or so too.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Your advice was so just so valuable because it really helped me to take a step back and validate, hey, I need to take this on myself. And it's not that I'm not going to ask for help. It's that I need to do this for me. And
Right,
that sounds really selfish in a lot of ways, and people view it that way, but it's also my life. Like I have to figure this out for me to
right,
continue.
right. I mean, and the reality from what you're dealing with, you might find that maybe some of what they're saying is true for you, but you won't know until you get to that truth. But the reality right now, today, is your truth sits in the chair with you, not with them. And that's the most important thing that we can remember. I'm withdrawn right now. I'm living in my camper all by myself, me and my dog. And I have to, like, I get in this chair, I get real kind of tense and whatnot. And so my dog and I go out to the little park that's just right out my door. But yeah, I'm secluded. So I have nobody sitting in chairs next to me right now. So I'm not going through exactly what you're going through.
Right. And no one is going through exactly what everyone else is going through. We're all having
Right?
an experience, and we all get to decide how we're going to respond.
Right. And so now I want to connect it to that spiritual guidance, because the one thing that you and I know in our world, this is our truth. It doesn't have to be other people's truth, but this is a little woo-woo for some people. But we are soul having a human experience. And this is what our soul needs to go through to get beyond whatever it needs to get beyond. And so that's where you and I have this great, you and I have a really spiritual connection. And that's why you and I are texting each other almost every morning and every night, because we both feed on each other's spiritual energy.
Yes, totally. And it's just so nice to have that trust with you and to be able to just say whatever I want to say, and and you will receive it.
Right, right, right. And so I'm not huge on astrology, but I do touch base loosely with astrology to see where the energy of the planets are. And I do that, and my trust, it has been there since I was born. My grandfather ran cattle on our little ranch when I was a little girl, and later on, my dad grew that ranch into a very large ranch where we run 600 head of mama cows. And my grandfather would never brand cattle if the blood was in the heart or the head. Now, I didn't understand that as a kid, but he had a farmer's almanac, which is the equivalent to an astrology chart. And this would tell the farmer when to plant, where the blood was in the cattle, when was the best time to brand these cattle. And so he had the very best cattle prices every time he went and took his cattle to the stockyard. He had the top cattle prices of not just our whole valley, but 3 whole valleys, because everybody would take their livestock to this very big area outside of our valley. And so they were the top. And then one day, years later, I'm an adult now, my dad decided he's going to help a friend brand. And I don't know, it's cold already because the snow was falling that day. Well, they cut the horns. These were adult cows, and they ended up having to cut the horns off of these cows. And most people don't know this, but the horn is the nasal cavity of that animal. So we had to put patches on that area to keep the air from going into these cattle. Well, we lost like 3 of them. And my grandfather never lost one. And when my dad went to the farmer's almanac, the blood was in the head. And so when they cut those horns off those cows, a lot of them bled to death because they cut too far down and the blood was in the head. So to me, that's the astrology aspect that I would raise. So, and I know you and I have had loose conversations about that. And then we take that into your Reiki.
Oh, for sure. And so Reiki, and I guess my background, so I'm a Reiki master and I became one in 2016, but I just kind of, and then life happened. Like I had my daughter, went through a divorce. So I didn't really practice it until this year. And actually I had a man from India that came to my door one day and said he was going to teach me the ancient ways of India. And through that practice, I started to see colors on the body. And like you said,
The aura.
everything that's inside is also outside. And so the outside is kind of like a reflection of the inside. And so when we're going through whatever we're going through, where life is being turned upside down, we can make a choice in how we want to see that. And, like through the practice of Reiki, when I do Reiki on myself, and because that's how I learned to do it on another person, I can see, hey, this is a spot where I need more love or tenderness within me. And as that grows, like you said, suddenly, like the astrology, like this is the part of me that, for example, a woman in her moon cycle, our periods.
Oh, yes.
No.
I can talk about that a bit too.
Certain days, you do not want to talk to me because that's a time where I'm just going through a cycle. Or there's another time where, my sex life is through the roof. Or, so we're all connected. And that's what Reiki is. And that's exactly what you're talking about with the Farmer's Almanac. And it's so interesting because I don't think my dad had the farmer's, well, maybe he did. I know my aunt did it. I mean, my dad was a farmer. But yeah, I kind of remember the days that we cut the horns on the cattle, and just the cycle of life you learn when you're on a farm is very interesting. You're much more connected to the earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of connecting some dots from what you just said to what's been going on in my life. When I didn't know that you come from a farm, that's another reason why we click so well. And you bringing up the moon cycle and when sex is out of the ballpark, that was, now we're going to go back to the conversation we'd had several months ago with Joe, where we were talking about the barbed wire fence and anal sex. And those are the things that, we talked then, that we have to have these kinds of conversations. You mentioned that we come from the farm and it's the cycle of life. And I have been told several times through this process, and Joe's been gone now for 4 months, and I've been told that I'm doing very well. And sometimes I feel I'm almost doing too good. And then something happens and proves that I love Joe so much and it hurts so deeply. But what helps me, or has helped me, along with this connection with you, and I have a connection with another gentleman who texts every morning, and you, but yours and mine is very spiritual connected. And so that cycle of life from the farm, that is what is helping me understand. I've not had that anger like towards God. Why did you take my husband away? We just barely have been connected for this long. And it's understanding that cycle of life and then connecting it to that moon sign. Well, I'm much older than you. So I've been through the cycle. So I don't have that anymore. Or at least that's what I thought. Then Joe dies, and my body goes freaking haywire. And for the last 3 months, well, now it's been 4, I have had a cycle. And so I've been to the doctor for this cycle. And because of that cycle, my freaking sex hormones have been off the freaking charts. I've been working with that to stabilize it with my doctor, because it's just like you said, sometimes it just goes off the charts. Well, I'm locked in a camper in the middle of South Carolina's nowhere. So I get to have these conversations with you. Most of them has been over text, but to help me understand and cope with that. So now we're on the same level now.
I mean, that's amazing to just think like you haven't had a cycle in years, and then suddenly now it comes out. And I mean, what does that say about, I mean, again, how we're connected with spirit and the earth and how it's supporting us?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think when I told you, that's when you kind of did distant Reiki on me. And I know for some of our viewers, this is a little woo-woo for you, but we are all connected. And one of the words that's used is the ether. We're all connected. Our energy goes out there. And so we're all connected to each other's energy like a spider web. And so I'm going to let Chrystal take it from there, because she made contact with me and she told me what that cycle meant. And that's when I started doing my little research, and I went to the astrology charts to find out things.
Are you talking about tarot? Or are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, you and I talked about that, but when, and I think you pulled or said something about one of the cards, the Queen card or something. Anyways, that the cycle was birth giving or life giving. And so we had those conversations.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the Empress card in tarot, where,
Yeah.
and it's connected to the planet Venus in astrology.
Yep, that's what you said.
And that card talks about how we are infinitely abundant and the universe is abundant. Now, we can be abundant in many different things. You can be abundantly full of SHIT. You can be abundantly abundant. You can have an abundance of lack in your life. You can have abundance of money in your life. You can have all kinds of abundance. And that card really talks about, well, it's also a card of the woman is like pregnant as she's sitting in this beautiful garden. And it's showing how in the circle of life, you know, we get to choose how, what we're going to be abundant about. And then that comes to the next card, which is a very masculine, you know, that the Empress is very feminine, and then the masculine is the Emperor. Yeah, and he's the ruler of reasoning and logic. So bringing that together, because we all have masculine traits and feminine traits within us.
Amen. So I opened up the book to the Empress, and it says here, you need to give birth to something that has never been. To do so, tap your creative potential. Be as gentle to yourself and your new creation as you would be to an infant. Enjoy the riches of nature and the natural world. So I didn't know that until you told me what the Empress was, so I had to go look it up. And you knew it innately. And of course, I have to read it to give you the understanding where I've got it from. But because of what you told me, this is where some of my healing journey moved into another realm, is that you told me that. I'm like, well, that's exactly what I feel. You put words to my feelings. And so that that helped me. And I've done a ton of digging to get to this point to where I could go, oh, this is what's going on. And last month on the 17th, we had that large super moon, the full moon.
Yeah.
And as I read through everything, that day was going to shift my whole life into another direction. So I'm going to talk about my garbage that's gone on, and then you can give me your laundry list of things that's turned your life upside down. So, of course, we know my husband died. Well, then my sister, well, I had all 8 of our kids out. So my 2 and Joe's 6. And they went through everything, and then they took all Joe's stuff. Some of my stuff went out the door. Some of my mom's stuff went out the door, but I totally didn't care. These poor children were hurting so bad. And their pain was hard for them to handle, and their pain and my pain was hard for me to handle. So they're gone. Then I'm alone for 2 weeks. My sister came out, and she was there for a few days and helped me pack up some stuff and was just there as a support. Then she was gone for another few weeks. And then I went to Colorado for Joe's service there in Colorado. And that was a horrible day for me. Not so much the day, but as the night fell, things just went sideways. I got into a fight with my sister, and things went sideways there. I ended up driving back in the middle of the night, which is a 15-hour drive. And so I get back, I'm finishing my packing, and I have the mover set up. I'm taking my RV so I can live in my RV or my camper. It's not an RV. And so I have all of this set up, and the mover's backed out. And I couldn't change the day that I was losing my camper to bring over here. I had to be here at a certain part. Well, through all of that, the movers, it took a whole nother week to get them out. I have ended up replacing tires on my car. I had to replace a hub on my car because the hub broke out, and I was going to lose that whole front hub. So my son replaced that when he was down that first week, the new tires. Then I had brake problems. They resurfaced my rotors. I went to Colorado, and everything went bad again. I had to have new rotors and new brakes put on, and just a laundry list of things that kept going wrong. The 17th, when that full moon happened, I have not had any more of those events gone on. So I know, to me, the planets, I mean, if the moon is strong enough to pull water up and cause a high tide, the planets as a whole can cause all kinds of stuff. So now you have a laundry list of things that you've dealt with.
Sure. And I think it's so interesting that you say that too about the moon. I was an accountant for 18 years. I worked in healthcare, and we always tracked emergency room visits and revenue based on the moon. And if you had 2 full moons in a month, you were going to have a really good emergency visit month.
I know that's a truth.
Not that the margins are as great as some of the other ones. It's usually a referral for the other parts of the hospital, but you're going to have a good month when your numbers are going to be up.
I was an EMT, so I know that's a truth.
So yeah, my laundry list. So way back in May, I broke up with my boyfriend of 6 years, boyfriend, partner, I don't know what you'd call him. And the last thing that he said to me was, "I love you more than I love myself." And that was the exact same thing that my ex-husband said to me the last day that we were together. And so that was a huge reflection back to myself of understanding, hey, do I really love myself, or am I in this relationship in order to validate or a condition of love? And so that's kind of what sparked everything for me now. So I broke up in that relationship. And there was actually another relationship that got me out of that relationship. And it was very short. It was just kind of like we went on a date, and he, he wanted more of a commitment than the previous partner. And then it ended up that he didn't want it. So then I was like, what am I doing? And I had to stop. And I just stopped dating, like just trying to stay away from men at the moment, to really understand,
Right.
hey, before I get back into a relationship, why would I be in a relationship? I need to be in a relationship because it's a reflection of my love for myself. I'm not going into a relationship to be with someone else to prove that I love myself.
Right.
And that's also a different way of living your life, because if you're, if it's money, if it's relationships, if it's, anything in your life where you're grasping for it, that means you're in a state of lack. And you're looking outside of yourself for something that is within yourself. And I'm seeing this right now with my own apartment. And I just dealt with this because in all that I was doing, trying to be something for everyone else, I wasn't something for myself. And that is so painful. But at the same time, in that pain, it brings me back to love for myself, which is a different foundation than I was living my life back in May or back in my marriage. And that's the greatest way that I can say that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and yeah, and if anybody can tell, you're not in an apartment now because the apartment is no longer a part of your life. And
Right, right.
part of what your upside down is. And so we're upside down, now what? Well, you and I have both taken steps, and you and I together have taken steps, because it's kind of like, I remember this back in high school. I had a friend and we drank too much, and he and I were leaning against each other. Pretty soon he'd throw up and I'd pick him up, and then I'd throw up and he'd pick me up. To me, that's kind of what you and I have been doing for each other. You trip and I pick you up, and I trip and you pick me up. And that's kind of the way we've been walking through these several months together.
Yep. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know what I would do without you.
Well, I know that when I wake up and when I go to bed and I see your messages and stuff, it really helps. I mean, even if you're just telling me about how rotten your day was, it helps me, because then I'm able to step out and go, okay, it's my turn to pick her up. And then you'll ask me the next day, well, so how are you doing? You check in with me. And I'm like, well, like my son's wedding, it wasn't a good day for me. I didn't know it, but yeah, my camel's back was really weak, and one word was said and my camel's back broke. And so I wish that I could turn back time and I had acted differently, but I truly, honestly could not take the pressure anymore that day. And so there was another new tire involved in that trek, because I ended up with a bad flat that day. But
Oh, no.
yeah. But the gift, and this is what I want us to get to here, we're bringing everything full circle, is now what? So the wedding part wasn't pleasant for me. Although prior to that, I had a great engagement with my ex-husband and his wife, who's been sick. And so I asked her if I could hug her. And that was just a very special moment for me. And I later found out that it touched her heart. So I I was happy that I was able to do that. But then my tire gets flat. Well, who was at my son's wedding but my family? They all stopped. And I have my cousin Shauna's fiance. He doesn't like to be flipped off. Well, I don't like to be told I'm a woman, step out of the way and let the men do the work. And he told me I'm a woman to step out of the way and let us guys do the work. So I flipped him off, but more so in fun than anything. So I apologize. And he gave me the best freaking hug. I mean, he just scooped me up in his arms and he held me. I couldn't have gotten away if I'd have really wanted to. And he whispered in my ear, "We got your back. You can do this. Just take one step at a time." And it's kind of like your messages to me. But that was a gift. It came in ugly wrapping paper, but it was a gift. Joe's death is probably the ugliest wrapping paper I've ever got. But in that, and then this, reconnect to our spiritual stuff, in his death, I have transitioned up. So my psychic ability has gotten a step, well, I don't know, it's probably 5-10 steps better than it's ever been. My ability to read energy and even people's thoughts have just doubled and tripled. And so it's helped me do my work with my clients. I'm able to sit back better. I'm able to listen better. And so for me, now what is the next step? It's we both are in this place that the only way out is to go through it, and I had a client here a while back that ended up in a mental hospital, and I had to make him promise me that he would be here tomorrow. I said, all I ask is that you are here tomorrow morning and you connect in with me. I need to hear you tomorrow morning. So in doing that, that's the one thing he told me. He says, just being able to promise you that I'll be here really made a world of difference when I went to bed. And so we just have to take that next step. We have to keep going because tomorrow is not going to be as bad as today. We've just got to keep going.
Well, exactly. And you get to choose how you're going to see that.
Amen.
Like the hardest thing for me was telling my daughter. And I really felt like I had let her down. And when I told my daughter, I said, we have a choice. We have a choice. Are we going to stay here or are we going to move? And that really helped her because she had a choice. And, so it's going through that and really understanding, hey, now what? Now we get to choose. This happened. What are we going to do now? And we can choose, to be sad about it, or we can move on. And there are things that happen that are beautiful. Like you said, like someone's changing your tire, someone's giving you a hug, and someone's, writing you a message asking how you are. All of those things happen and they show up, and we get to decide if we're going to see it that way or if we're not going to see it that way. And that's the difference between going up and staying in limbo, I guess.
or just sinking down to where we don't exist anymore. And, I had a very close girlfriend that committed suicide here several years ago. And so I look back at that moment when she decided that her life and her pain was more important than her own children. And I can say that now, but I was there at one point too, where we just think this moment hurts so bad and we can't go through one more minute of this. And yes, we can. We can reach out to somebody, Chrystal reaches out to me. I reach out to her. We help each other along. And so if there's one thing that I can tell you listeners out there, please reach out for the help. I have a couple of people right now that can't afford my service, but I'm able to, they can reach out when they're in that I don't feel like I'm coming backstage, and I make sure that they know that they're cared for. Because when we can help other people, it helps us.
Oh, for sure. And you're just reminding me too, like in my story, like going to court. I was preparing to go to court alone, and all of a sudden the lawyer shows up. And that has completely changed the case. Now it's not perfect, but it's turning around slowly, and it's having the faith that it's all working out the way it's supposed to work out. And I
Yes.
and I get to choose if I'm going to suffer or if I'm going to enjoy the ride. That's pretty much what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And it's not, and I know that you've experienced this in the last few days. Like, I mean, I love that you're sincere and that you show your tears, because that's real. And that's what our listeners are going through. It's real for them. They're hurting. And we need to be able, when we're hurting, to one, sit in that pain, label the pain. Don't try to pretend it doesn't exist, because that's a bunch of hooey. You can't, fuck that. We're here. We're hurting. Just label it. It's pain. It's coming from, I wish I could. And then sit in that for a little minute, and then get up and do some movement somewhere. When I get like that, I get up and I go outside with my dog, and I literally dance in the trees. I put music in my ears, and I have this little place in the middle of the trees, and I just dance in the trees, and I feel so much better. But we need to not pretend it's not there, because the fact is it hurts.
Oh, for sure. And and having the space for that, to really have the space to feel your emotions, to feel safe in your body. And then, sometimes you're not safe with another person, but you can be safe with yourself, or you find someone that you can be safe with and really, let it out. Because for me, it's in childhood, it wasn't safe. It was, I had to be strong, but being strong is releasing, feeling it so that you can release it.
Right.
And coming to that choice point of, hey, this is what I feel now. Now what?
Yeah. And then we bring this back. I know that you're an intimacy coach along with some of the other stuff that you do. And I remember, when we talked the last time, when Joe was with us and everything, that, we talk about that communication. And this is so important, dealing with PTSD with the clients that I have that are vets that have PTSD from the war. They hold things in, and that's part of the issue. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my energy work. When we hold things in, it holds and stays in our body. And and Chrystal said just a little bit ago that it what's on the inside shows up on the outside. And so what's on the outside that we hold inside, our muscles tense up around those things and fold a knot in our muscle. Wherever that memory is at, it's going to fold into a knot and pulls on the tendons and the ligaments and the bones. And pretty soon you see somebody that used to be erect is now got a hunch, because they've never talked about their issues. The only way to release them is to let them out. I talked about, a friend of mine was on a motorcycle. We almost were in a motorcycle accident, and we got off. He ran after the guy. That was his physical release. He yelled at the guy. That was a verbal physical release. He came back and talked and talked and talked and talked about it. That was his emotional release. And so we have to talk about it. We have to do something physical, and we have to talk about it, so we're not holding it on into our body. No, so Chrystal, I know that when there's tension in a body in Reiki, you see that. So what does that look like to you?
Well, like I see a gray color. It's usually a gray color in the body. A lot of people, if it's family related, it's in the shoulders and then the back of the neck and like the higher back, I guess I'd say. And then you know, there's random spots too where people will hold things. I know that I was doing Reiki on one guy and all of a sudden I was feeling his foot and I heard cancer free. So he was holding that, and it was actually his dad that had just had, that was just now cancer free. But he was holding that piece of the emotion in his foot, which it was kind of fascinating because like and I'm just learning this too, like as I speak what I see, the colors, etc., then they get to validate on my table, hey, you know, hey, I'm stressed out with work. Oh yeah, I can kind of see it's in the back of your head because you're thinking so much. You know, it's running in circles. And that's kind of like a brown to me when I see like a lot of anxiety. So there's brown and gray. It's kind of the blockage colors that I see usually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, green. I see a lot of people's hearts. They have beautiful green heart chakras. Um, and you'll notice like on the chakra, it'll be like a tinge. It won't be as bright. And that'll be some sort of emotion that's caught up that needs to be released.
Yeah.
It's
And yeah, it's all fascinating. I mean, I did energy work and I'm being called to add some of that into my practice now. So it's something that's coming in. So we're at a point that we're going to start to wrap up. So what are some last minute information that you would give people that are in their life right now and it's upside down? What's their next steps?
Well, I think and this is going to sound really simple, but it all starts with the breath. Can you stop and just breathe? And one of the meditations that I use is because I always have thoughts running. So then I take a thought and I put it on a leaf and I watch the leaf go down to the ground. So every time a thought comes, oh, there's a thought. I put it on the leaf, watch it go down to the ground. And I see how
I
long
love
I
that.
do that because that helps with my breath. Because then suddenly I'm breathing because I'm not so focused on the running thought. So that
I
brings
love
me
that.
back to center because everything that's happening is trying to keep you off center. And in center is where the potential is to change your reality. Which I mean, you're what degree black belt? I don't know.
Fifth degree.
Fifth degree black belt. It's better than I do, but it comes back to the breath. That's all I'm going to say to keep it simple. Just breathe. Just focus on breathing. And that's
Yes.
all you got to do.
Yes. And so how can people contact you if they want some distant Reiki or they want to go through and talk to you about your intimacy coaching?
Well, I have my website. I'm kind of in the midst of, well, I'm on Thurvo and I'm kind of like in a transition right now. I have a cleaning business. I have Reiki. I'm doing a little bit of the spiritual work. It's probably best if I just put my email and you can just email me. If
Well,
you're,
and your information will be in the show notes.
yeah,
The Tao of the Heart I know is going to be listed there, and so I know that your information will be in the show notes. So that's where that part will be. So
yep.
so and my last little bit of advice fits right into what Chrystal says. So it has to do with the breath. Only when my clients come to me and they're in a sporadic mood, they're just crazy. They're talking real loud and really, really fast, real loud and really, really fast. So what I do is I have them slow down their talking and lower their volume. And I have them do that. They can go to the mirror, they can go outside, talk to the dog, lower your volume and slow your speech down. When you do that, you're breathing better. And the whole point, and so to take it into my martial arts training, the reason why we make a key up and we go kia when we punch or kick or whatever is because we need to get that ugly air out of our lungs. Okay, why is that important? Because that next breath is full of good air. That's why we scream in the martial arts. Yeah, it's scary to our opponent, but it's more important that we get the pent up energy out and then we bring in that good energy back. So that's why we scream. And that's, just like Chrystal says, we want to make sure that our breathing is slowed down. We want to make sure, like I say, slow your communication down. So I am a CDC certified divorce coach. That means that I'm trained in divorce and the complexities of divorce. I specialize in high conflict divorce, especially that of a toxic narcissistic partner. I'm also a certified restorative family mediator and facilitator. With that training, I'm better able to help assist you in communication with your soon-to-be ex, but also with all of your other divorce professionals. It helps me to help you uncouple as a whole person and not be a half a person when you separate out. My background comes in from law enforcement, and during that time, I was a self-defense instructor as a 5th-degree black belt of Taekwondo. You can contact me through my email at coachtinalynn@gmail.com. That's Coach, COACH, Tina, TINA, Lynn, LYNN @gmail. And my website is divorcecoachspecialist.com. You can also find me on social media on Facebook under Tina Lynn Huggins, that's HUGGINS. On LinkedIn under Tina Huggins, your divorce coach specialist. On TikTok under Divorce Tina. And on Instagram under Divorce Coach Tina Lynn. As with any domestic violence situation, please get the police there. Call 911 or if you're in the UK, 999. My husband Joe would always say, once the cops are there, press charges. Do not drop the charges because that is your ticket out safely. Never drop the charges because what comes next is more violent than you've experienced yet. For those of you dealing with domestic violence that's not emergent, call the domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. That number again is 800-799-7233. So I invite you to please like, comment, and share this information with others so that it can help others as best as possible. So I thank you very much, Chrystal, for being here with me today and spending time with me. It was more of a gift to me than it'll probably be to our viewers, but thank you so much.
Thank you. I so appreciate you, Tina.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.